Oh, welcome to Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. We're going to go over some polling today. We're going to go over the speaker vote today. And I think John O'Shea is going to come and visit us and give us his thoughts about the speaker vote. Look, you know, the bottom line is, even if Republicans end up with Congressman Johnson as the speaker, which looks pretty possible, there was no, guarantee that this was going to happen. So they would, for once in their typically pathetic careers as Republican politicians, get lucky. Or I would say the voters get lucky and they might actually get it right. Because there's no doubt about it, Mike Johnson is much more, what's the word? Let's use the word we always use, representative of the Republican caucus. I got some clips from the guy, which, by the way, I'm never going to share clips again. Tell people what I'm going to play on the show. Is immediately I see it all over Twitter. It happens a lot. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm looking at you. First name starts with a B. Last name starts with a J. All right. You do that crap all the time. All right. Look, if you like the videos, don't forget to like them. Share them far and wide. Subscribe, whether you're watching on Rumble, whether you're watching on YouTube, whether you're watching on Getter. Don't forget to follow us. But, of course, the best place to follow the People's Pundit is on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. If we get to it, we'll try to do a Rust Belt poll update today. I'll tell you where we stand on it and where we're going. The Georgia poll is still there. I think it's getting kind of close, actually. I haven't checked it in a bit, but I will. All right. The national poll, with remains of the crowdfunding of the national poll, will end up being the Rust Belt poll. So basically, I put up one campaign that's going to cover two polls. And that's because we really want to poll as much as we possibly can. Oh, and on Big Data Poll, if you go to the homepage, the portfolio section where you see all our graphs of all the trackers, well, not all of them, but many of them that we have done, you will see now that the Republican nomination tracking is up. And over time, you will see we'll put every month in there, right? I'm trying to figure out how, if you click the line, if you click the plot on the line graph, how can that take you to the crosstabs? But we're not there yet. I'm sure we'll figure it out. But for now, what we're going to do is just add hyperlinks below. Like, this was the October survey. Here was the August survey, et cetera, et cetera. All right. Let me play something last night when the Republican conference got out. We have a polling update we have to get to. Just bear with me. When the Republican conference got out, these were the remarks from Congressman Johnson.
We want to thank all the press for waiting. It's been quite a process. Democracy is messy sometimes, but it is our system. This conference that you see, this House Republican majority, is united. I'm honored to have the support of my colleagues, and what they understand about this is servant leadership. We're going to serve the people of this country. We're going to restore their faith in this Congress, this institution of government. America is the last best hope of man on the earth. Abraham Lincoln said it. Ronald Reagan used to remind us all the time, and we're here to remind you of that again. We're going to restore your trust in what we do here. You're going to see a new form of government, and we are going to move this quickly. This group here is ready to govern, and we're going to govern well. We're going to do what's right by the people. And I believe that people are going to reward that next year. But we have a lot of big priorities ahead of us right now. The world is on fire. We stand with our ally, Israel. We have a very busy agenda. We have appropriations bills to get through the process, but you are going to see this group working like a well-oiled machine. We owe that to the American people. The people up here have been sent here by the people of this country to do this job, and we are going to do it well. We commit that to you. Thank you for allowing us to go through the process and get to this. It was worth it, and we are going to serve you well.
That's enough. I could have played it a little bit longer, but this is why the media, this is why the American public absolutely hates the media. Okay. We have never heard Rachel or anybody in the mainstream press talk to Democrats like this. So what do you think, instead of, what's the first bill if you get the votes? What's the first bill you're going to work on? Nothing like that. No. Instead, we get a question like this, which is real quick. And then I just want to point something out. Obvious.
Senator Johnson, you helped lead the efforts to overturn the 2020 election results. Will you
Next question. Next question.
Congressman Johnson, can you talk to us about your efforts to overturn the 2020 election? They knew that's what helped smear Jim Jordan, and they're trying to do that as well. Hakeem Jeffries is the current leader of the House minority, the Democratic House minority. Hakeem Jeffries is a Russia collusion truther. Hakeem Jeffries immediately went to Twitter after the 2016 election and pushed every Russia collusion hoax known to man. He called Donald Trump illegitimate. He said the more we see evidence, the more evidence we see, the more it confirms that the election is illegitimate. That, of course, was an absolute lie. When we talk about 2020, and whether the legitimacy of 2020, which, by the way, when you're just talking about the American public, most people, or I would say this, more people believe that Joe Biden was illegitimately elected than people who believe Donald Trump was illegitimately elected. That is not true if you go back to the polling immediately after 2020, because the vast majority of Democrats believed that Vladimir Putin, just anyone who has any knowledge of how our elections are run, really listen to this statement, that Vladimir Putin stole the election on behalf of Donald Trump. How would Vladimir Putin have done that? Our elections are not a central hub where everyone counts, in the Capitol or something, and everything's, on one database that comes in through APIs through different states. This is just not how this is done. Elections are handled by state and local officials. There is no way that could ever have been a plausible event. It doesn't even sound spy novel real. It's just not possible. It's not plausible or possible. Could he have influenced it? Well, then by influencing, if that's rigging an election, then no election in the United States is fair. Because Democrats rig every single election with a corrupt media. The bias alone would be considered rigging. But we moved way beyond bias in 2020. We did not change the nature of our laws. We didn't put moratoriums on state laws, existing laws like ballot harvesting. We did not put moratoriums on standards for verifying signatures. None of that happened in 2016. None of it. Vladimir Putin ran some bot farms or something. I mean, think about this. Nancy Pelosi, their prior leader, pushed Russia collusion. Nancy Pelosi allowed some of the biggest Russia collusion hoaxers, Adam Schiff, Jamie Raskin, you name it, to play, Eric Swalwell, Mr. Fang Fang Banger, to play a key role in the prosecution of the impeachment of Donald Trump, even though they were 100% pushers of the Russia collusion hoax. You never got a single question from Rachel or anybody about that. Never. This is why the American public hates the media. They're not. We need to. You're never going to stop them, and there shouldn't be a law against the media being pieces of trash. We should just go back to the way that it used to be when everybody stopped pretending as if the media was impartial. They're not impartial. They were not arbiters of truth. They weren't policing the halls of power. That's not what the media's role was. The media in the early republic was a partisan media. Their role was to persuade and debate. That's what we had in this country. We should just go back to the original, and because you have to make everyone understand what it was. You have to go back to the original concept that media is not some credible source of information that pushes objective, impartial, and unbiased information onto the public. That's not what the media does. All right. So with that in mind, I have some flashbacks, and then I want to talk about the role Donald Trump played here, which, speaking of the disgusting media, even Fox News. I mean, this is the problem Republicans have. If they get Mike Johnson, who, by the way, I saw your question. Mike Johnson's a congressman from Louisiana, right? So, I mean, a red state. Is it the heart of MAGA? I mean, Louisiana is a pretty MAGA state, and look at how Louisiana voted just a few weeks ago, throughout John Bel Edwards's, I wouldn't call him handpicked, but, Democrats got routed. They got behind their candidate. There were a lot of candidates Jeff Landry had to go against. He got an outright majority in a jungle primary. Republicans won plurality victories in majority districts. I mean, it was a big win. But I don't know if I would call it that. That has been the base of the Republican Party for a while. It's just important that in the era of MAGA, and Landry was a Trump-endorsed candidate, in the era of MAGA, and we're going to go over this really soon, Republicans are doing better with non-whites. They're doing better with voters that the Mitt Romney crowd and the rest of them have long said they really wanted to win. We need to be a bigger tent party, and we need to open our arms to these people. In fact, though, opening their arms to these people really was a code for pretending to care about their family values and pretending to care about their economic interests. It really was just a bunch of horse crap. Mitt Romney wants, Javier and Jesus to mow his lawn for $20. Mitt Romney wants Juanita and, everyone else to fold his laundry for change. He didn't actually mean that. What he meant was, and what they all meant, is that we need to support open borders so I can get my done on the cheap. And then, hopefully that'll make us more sympathetic to them. So there we have it. All right, so that's not what's happening here. Mike Johnson would be an upgrade from Kevin McCarthy. I do think that. And in fact, I'm going to play something here. Don't want to leave this. I do really want to talk about if John can come on, I want to save the role Donald Trump played in this process this week for John, because I think this is very specific to John's case. All right. So let's just roll with what happened here. Let's do a little flashback. Who is Mike Johnson? He's a quiet guy. Relatively quiet guy, but, depending on who you're looking at, a fairly solid voting history. He's made some comments in the past that are absolutely hilarious. You may remember Donald Trump giving a State of the Union address, all right? And you may remember Nancy Pelosi behind Donald Trump ripping up the State of the Union address, which was one of the most appalling things we've ever seen anybody do. I mean, I remember that day like it was yesterday. And what got, for people who know how the process goes with State of the Unions and even joint sessions, that's a piece of history. And there's a copy, right, made later. But when the president's speech is, approved, done, it's the final draft, copies go out to different people. And those copies are not, or I would say, that they're copies of his speech, but they are the president's speech. Here's the House Speaker's version of it, or not version, but copy of it. And that's the initial draft. It's a piece of history. It doesn't belong to Nancy Pelosi. It belongs to the office of the Speaker. Just like it wouldn't the draft that Mike Pence got. It doesn't belong to Mike Pence. It belongs to the office of the Vice President. And we keep records, and that's how we preserve our history. And Nancy Pelosi tore that up. This is what Mike Johnson had to say about it that a little bit later. He was reacting to it, but he went on Tucker to discuss it. Here's what he said.
So you were obviously watching there at the State of the Union. When you saw the speaker rip the president's speech into pieces, did you take that as a sign of politeness, as an expression of kindness and friendship?
No, of course not. I mean, it was a shameful display. It was stunning, really, to many members sitting in the House. It was totally unprecedented. It was shameless, and it was also unlawful, Tucker. You know, a lot of people have been talking about this the last 48 hours, and I did a little legal memo to point out to my colleagues that she actually committed a felony when she tore that paper up. It wasn't just any copy of the State of the Union address. It was the copy, the original. And we have over 2 centuries of custom and tradition, and of course the Constitution that calls for the State of the Union address, that when the president delivers the copies to those top legal officers, the 2 top legislative officers in that co-equal branch of government, those are the official documents of the House. And if you tear those up, you violated a specific statute in the criminal code.
I guess, as it turns out, that's true. But of course, nothing ever happens to Nancy Pelosi. So nothing will ever happen to the Pelosi's. The only thing that the only ones that if Donald Trump did that, or if Jim Jordan did that, then maybe that would be a real problem. And if you don't believe me, you can go back and listen to the roll call votes with Jim Jordan last week, and you will hear no less than 2 members of the Democratic caucus call Jim Jordan an insurrectionist, which is code for lop off his head, in case you're not paying attention. All right, so that's code for prosecute him with something punishable by death. In this point, that's where we are in America. All right, but it's 12:18, so I'm going to move on here, and we'll talk more about the speaker later. All right, look, let's have a polling update. Massachusetts came out, Texas came out, but there was something that came out yesterday. I tweeted about it. I put it up on Locals. We talked about it, but I want to bring it up now because I made this cute little arrow graph for you, because when we did the crosstabs from the pollster, they're so small, you guys would have been like, I can't see that, Rich, and I get it. So I made an arrow graph of the demographics that I thought were most important, all right? Even if there weren't significant changes, because I'm trying to show you something. For instance, yesterday, earlier, just a little bit ago, WPA Intel posted about the Tennessee election specials that occurred. And rural and suburban districts did not go well for Republicans, all right? And it's becoming this, like, mantra to try to use these low turnout specials where Democrats are paying more attention at, when Republicans do bad, to conclude that that's, somehow Trump's fault and MAGA's fault. All right. But when Republicans do well, like in Louisiana, you're not supposed to pay attention to that. You're supposed to call it low turnout, and you're supposed to just dismiss it as insignificant. Okay. I don't know if you got that yet. Those are the rules with the Rhino wing of the party, who wasted $100 million to get their ass kicked by Donald Trump. All right, so everyone really knows that 2024 is going to be very, very different. The real problem, they don't want you to know, it goes to the mentality we discussed on Monday with Americans for Prosperity, the ads they're running. They want Republicans to believe that if you nominate somebody other than Donald Trump, Democrats are going to go easy on you. Turnout won't be that high. And that the only one who's going to drive turnout up is Donald Trump. Here's the real kicker. The only one who can drive Republican turnout up is Donald Trump. Every pollster knows this from the left to right. It's just some are straight lying because that's what they do. They lie for money. They're in court right now being sued because of their lies and their theft. Same firms, folks, same people behind those firms. So whatever smear you want to throw at somebody from 20 years ago, I am currently not sitting in court being sued for $1 million by my ex-wife because I stole her technology and data. That's who these people are. So, of course, they need big fat checks to be written to them right now by never-Trumpers and anti-Trumpers to help pay their legal fees and settle those disputes with their ex-wives. I get paid by you, so I tell the truth. And the truth is, Democrats are going to vote regardless. And they're going to vote in very high numbers. And Republicans are losing all over the country because they are way behind in not only the vote harvesting operation, but if Republicans aren't paying attention, and if Donald Trump is sitting in court, he doesn't get involved, then all that's left is Republicans to fend for themselves against Democrats who not only have their vote harvesting operation, but are well into AI technologies. The person talking into the microphone right now is the only non-Democrat who is comfortable with and knows how to use new AI technologies that are available for campaigning, and Democrats are kicking their asses. They had beta versions of it in 2022. So along with every other documented advantage, in case you haven't read the article I've shared numerous times that was out on Real Clear Politics from professor at the University of Buffalo, they have structural advantages and technological advantages. They also happen to have the media entertainment, the telecoms industry, all on their side. And the people who fell behind now want you to believe that they are the only ones who can somehow thread the needle between low turnout and women and winning the suburban woman back, while somehow not sufficiently pissing off MAGA and the Obama-Trump voter, that they're just no longer going to be relevant in the electorate. It's crazy. It's insane. Yesterday, a poll came out, which probably is one of the most devastating pieces of data we have to their narrative. All right. And it is a narrative. It's not true. And here I put it up in this nice little graph for you to see. Here's Trump's support in New York in the poll, well-known poll from New York State. They've been polling New York for a long time, Siena College. And this is his support from November 2020 to 2023 among certain demographic groups. The headline of the poll is what got everyone's attention because it was single digits. Donald Trump was literally down by single digits in the state of New York. And it's important to note that this is a pollster, and they do good work. They do. But they understated Donald Trump's share of the vote by 9 points in 2020. And they understated Lee Zeldin's by 5, I believe, something like that. Ballpark 5. All right, so overall in 2020, their final poll showed Biden winning by over 30 points because they pegged Biden's vote share in the state of New York pretty well. I mean, that's they got it. They got it right on the money. What they missed and why they, overshot by about 10 points for Biden is that Donald Trump's vote share was going to be 38% instead of 29. All right. And Biden's, they got about right, 60%. I think they had him at 62 or something. He got 61. And even if I'm wrong about that, it was very, very close. They got his share about 60%, but they understated Donald Trump's by 9. All right. There's some key demographics that are behind this swing that really shows why Donald Trump is outperforming Republicans everywhere. It's why Donald Trump can get votes that they can't get. Had Donald Trump won in 2020, we would have looked at the state of New York and we would have said, oh my God, what is going on? Donald Trump was the first to win certain parts of New York since the 1980s. First Republican. And yet we never talked about it. King County, New York City, in truth, the 5 boroughs, Donald Trump, it was one of many that we have discussed, urban areas where Donald Trump not only increased the number of votes he got, but increased his share of the vote. However, this poll in 2020, New York City only had Donald Trump's vote share at 14%. In truth, Donald Trump got 22% in Kings County. He got 27% in Queens County. He got 45% in Nassau. He won Suffolk, won it. He won Richmond, 57-42, which is fairly large in the modern era. In New York State, in New York, the New York County of New York, he got 12.3% of the vote. All right, so that is pretty close to what they're saying he was going to get. 15% or 16% in the Bronx. It's so small. I'm trying to get my little cursor on here. Yep, 16% in the Bronx, 31% in Westchester, but let's not go out of Westchester. Let's just take the Bronx. Let's take Kings, Queens, New York City, and the county of New York, pretty close, 14%. Now they have Donald Trump at 26%. A 12-point shift in New York City is a lot of votes. What's doing it? 4% black vote share. Final poll before 2020. 4%. That's it. Now they have Donald Trump at 19%. The exact number we've had him at nationwide, by the way, for the last 3 polls. They only had him with 14% of the Hispanic vote in 2020. They now have him at 34. You may notice that white is not bold. Why? Because it is not as significant as a shift as the rest of them. Nevertheless, this idea he's hemorrhaging white voters is ridiculous, because even in the very liberal state of New York, Donald Trump's white vote share increased from 36 to 43. It's a very, very Democratic state, more than D plus 30. Any other state with numbers like this, he'd be ahead. But because it's so partisan Democrat, it's tough. Even if you win independents overwhelmingly. Among women, one of the biggest shifts outside of Hispanics. Those suburban women, Team DeSantis keeps trying to scare you over. 27%. That's all he was getting. Not suburban, all across New York. That's it. He's now at 45. And again, it's important to note that Trump has in the past outperformed his polling with certain groups, to include women, white voters. That's important because we've only had him on the ballot twice. It's safe to assume it may not happen, but we have to acknowledge the possibility or the very real likelihood that Trump is going to do better than he has done in the past, because that's the way it has been every election he's been on the ballot. In New York, Trump only got 37% of the female vote, but this poll had him at 27%. Now they have him at 45. By the way, he lost men 60-39. Men are flat at 40. So they were right about his male vote. Roughly 40%. He got 39 if you believe the Edison Research exit polls in the state of New York. Interestingly enough, he's still at 40. I have said this over and over and over and over. And I'm getting so sick and tired of the same nonsense narratives that are bought and paid for by political campaigns. Argue amongst yourselves. Argue with Team Trump. Argue with Trump's strategists. Don't try to argue with me, because I don't take a paycheck from a candidate like you do. So you just come in looking dumb, dude. Give your wife her money back. In the suburbs, which Donald Trump lost by a point in New York in 2020, he is now ahead, and his vote share has increased in this poll by 8 points. So it ain't suburban men, folks. If he increased with women from 27 to 45, an 8-point shift is occurring in the burbs, and men are flat, where is he getting these votes from? Suburban women and non-white urban voters. It's not a mirage, because the mirage wasn't there in 2020. And just to drive my point home, he's only up 4% with Catholics. This is coming from white suburban women, black men and women, and black and Hispanic men and women in urban areas. A 12-point increase in New York City. 14% they said he was going to get. In 2020, he got 12. They're wrong now? It's a mirage now? Give me a friggin' break. This is the most significant political realignment in our lifetime. It is the most significant that favors Republicans since the Reagan routes, and that's never going to happen again, because the country is demographically 100% different. education, race, even age. It's just a different country. And this is what they want to talk about? This is all they can muster up? That's the geniuses out there? This is as much as they can bring up? The same tired nonsense that we constantly hear? It's getting ridiculous. And by the way, Trump outperformed his Hispanic support in the polls in New York in 2020. He did. More like he got over 20%, not 14. And Hispanics are more liberal in New York State, so it's a little bit tougher. As a testament more to what I'm talking about here, it goes even beyond that. Because it's difficult when you have such a Democratic state, but independents in New York State absolutely hated Donald Trump in 2020. His favorability rating was abysmal. All right. And just to give you what it was in 2020, and I know I didn't put it on here because it really didn't go with the rest of it. Okay, they didn't have that at that point, but for that final one, they did. I just don't have that slide up right now. But it has shifted even considerably since the last poll Sienna did about 2 months ago. It's what is remarkable about this, folks, is that this is a man who has been sitting in a courtroom in the state for now going on 2 months. And yet his support is increasing as Joe Biden is decreasing. Independents in New York, which do trend liberal, now have a more favorable opinion of Donald Trump than they do Joe Biden. Considerably worse image of Joe Biden than they do of Donald Trump. Almost 40% view Trump favorably, 57% view him unfavorably. That's not good, but it's a significant increase from where he was, which is where Joe Biden is right now. Are you ready? -36. 30% of a favorable image of Joe Biden in independents only in New York. Two-thirds, 66 view him unfavorably. Hell, even among partisans, twice as many Democrats have a favorable image of Donald Trump, 19%, than Republicans who have a favorable image of Joe Biden, about 11. So nearly twice as many. 3 points off. That's it. This is huge. It's a big deal. Trump's vote share among those who are in union households and who are not in union households is equal. It's damn near equal. It's 1 point different. That's it. With Kennedy on the ballot, his union support does get lower. But then again, so does Joe Biden's. Joe Biden's falls 8 points. Trump's falls 7. So it's potentially a state where it could shape some stuff up. For sure. When you look at the upstate region, everyone thinks, well, it's so conservative. It's really not. Take your cursor, go on peoplespunditdaily.com. Go find the 2020 election archive page. Just scroll down. It's still on the front page. You just got to scroll down through the elections. And what you're going to find is that a lot of those rural counties are really friggin' close. Clinton went for Biden. Things changed. And things are changing now. All right, so there we have it. All right, look, we'll come back to this. There's a lot more polls that I want to go over. Texas, the poll out of Texas, that is tracking poll, shows Trump with nearly a 60-point lead. He at this point, even though DeSantis in some areas in the poll appears to qualify for delegates because of the majority threshold rule, Donald Trump would remove his qualified delegates anyway. So as it stands right now, Donald Trump takes every single delegate in the state of Texas. Every single one. And imagine this for all these stupid idiots who keep saying, from jail? Is he going to win from jail? He's going to be in jail in November 2024. But I got to tell you, watching what I'm watching in New York, I'm starting to doubt whether he could lose from jail. Laura, he's been in a courtroom for 2 months in the Empire State. The Attorney General just today posted yet another stupid attempt at a meme. The left cannot meme. The left is not good at memeing. They really should try to stop attempting to meme. And you would think that somebody from Biden's White House would call that idiot and tell her, you know what? Just drop the charge. They're stupid. They're stupid. You're killing me. Don't tell me. I am so sick of white Republican strategists trying to tell me about black and brown people, especially in a state like New York. Were they born in the Bronx like you? Nope. They ever live in Staten Island on Scranton Avenue? Nope. The hell do they know? I'm telling you for a fact, what Letitia James and Jack Smith and the rest of them are doing to Donald Trump raises his credibility in the 5 boroughs with non-whites. Are you out of your mind? Have you ever been there? Of course it does. Of course it does. Oh, my God. Speaking of which, before Trump went into the conference, and I know I put it on locals for people to look at. I'm going to have to try to grab it up here because I think it's important we talk about this, and this is really relevant to John O'Shea's situation. Here it is. All right. So, locals, I didn't lose you, did I? Okay. Refresh if it freezes again. Some people say it was freezing. Other people are like, nah, it's fine. It's not, nothing's wrong. Maybe you, honestly, it may be your internet that's freezing because mine's rolling along. Listen, I'm going to put this up and I want to play something because, I mean, this happened maybe an hour and a half after Jake Sherman posts on X, formerly known as Twitter, that Donald Trump's input on who is House Speaker and who doesn't become House Speaker is irrelevant. All right. So before I bring on John, I just want to go over this real quick because obviously it turned out to be a lot more relevant. I killed him. How Trump torpedoed Tom Emmer's speaker bid. I'll tell you immediately, we all saw this coming. We all saw McCarthy attempting to support Emmer. Emmer is responsible, not fully, but there were others who played a role. But Emmer is responsible for Republicans underperforming. He has a role there. He played a pivotal role in sabotaging MAGA candidates because he thought that they would be able to replace them with candidates in, let's say, Connecticut, in Virginia, in Rhode Island, several other places around the country. And what happened, obviously, was that it didn't work out. So for all the fools who keep talking about how MAGA candidates were why Republicans underperformed, Emmer's people lost too in areas where people expected them to win. All through New England, all through the Atlantic, coastal, middle colonies, and yes, even in parts of the West and South. I mean, everywhere. And he is not favorable to America First as a policy, and he doesn't like Donald Trump as a person. So it was kind of ridiculous that you were going to see everyone beyond Matt Gaetz, so I'm going to play a clip in a second, get behind him. And it was like, no kidding. It was minutes after Jake Sherman, was reporting it for Fox News, that people were getting calls. Emmer called to try to kiss Donald Trump's you-know-what, and it didn't work. Trump saw right through him, and he torpedoed his bid. There's no doubt. Just when the congressman thought he had neutralized Trump, the former president lowered the boom. We all know what happened. Trump put this post out on Truth Social, just eviscerated Tom Emmer, and then he was done minutes later. Let me read this. Just hours after Tom Emmer, Republican Minnesota, and you would think he would be more America First, Laura, but he's not from that part of Minnesota. He's not populist Republican at all. Just after he won the Republican conference's nomination to be House Speaker on Tuesday, former President Donald Trump took to Truth Social to deride the congressman as, quote, totally out of touch with Republican voters, unquote, and a, quote again, globalist rhino, unquote. That's all true. 100%. It's all true. He is not aligned with Republican voters, and he is a freaking globalist rhino. He then got on the phone with members to express his aversion for Emmer and his bid for Speaker. By Tuesday afternoon, Trump called one person close to him with the message, "He's done. It's over. I killed him." Just minutes later, Emmer officially dropped out of the race. So much for this concept. See, these idiots really thought they could play by different rules, and Trump supported Jordan, even supported McCarthy, and that didn't really work. So Trump was really just ineffective at convincing House Republicans who should and should not be the Speaker of the House. So before I bring on John, because I do want to talk more about this with John, but before I bring on John, I want to play, because I see guys already, well, what the hell was going on with Matt Gaetz? I'm going to play a short clip from Matt Gaetz, and you decide.
And the swamp is on the run. MAGA is ascendant. And if you don't think that moving from Kevin McCarthy to MAGA Mike Johnson shows the ascendance of this movement and where the power in the Republican Party truly lies, then you're not paying attention. But they are crying, they are hand-wringing and bedwetting over on K Street, because we have an honorable, righteous man who is about to take this position. He's going to do great things for the country.
Let's not pretend that there was some great plan, all right, hatched out that was going to, make Mike Johnson the speaker over Tom Emmer. Gaetz was outwardly, vocally, publicly supporting Emmer. He turned to members of the conference a couple of days ago, jokingly, as the press was there with their scrum. And he was like, "I like Emmer. That's all right. I like Emmer." That was last week. Started last week with that. And he was doing it while Donald Trump was making phone calls saying Emmer's got to go. There's no way Emmer can be the Speaker of the House. So let's not pretend like all of this was coordinated and organized. It was not. It was not. And it's, as far as I know right now, since we've gone on, it's not a done deal, although it's hard to reject Johnson. It's hard. He doesn't have he first, attitudinally, he's very different than Jim Jordan, which, by the way, these squishy little spineless cowards are going to have to get over. That's who the Republican Party is now. The Republican Party is a Jim Jordan Republican Party. It's I like wrestling. It makes men into better men. I am a fighter. That's who I am. I talk brass sometimes. You don't like it. Tough crap. That's who the Republican Party is. And if you want to continue seeing the swings that I put up on the screen before, you better just get the hell over it, because nobody wants a soft-spoken old white man anymore. Nobody. That part of the party will be dead within a decade. You understand what I'm saying here? And then where will you be? Here's what Trump had to say about... Actually, I'm going to get John's reaction to some of these other ones. I'm not going to play them. But let me bring in John O'Shea now. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for the short notice, John. I knew that you had a lot going on. So thanks for the short notice for being able to come on today.
No, always good to be on with you, Rich. Time for you anytime.
Man, I'll tell you what, with all of this speaker stuff, this is God's gift, because you went out on a limb to support Ken Paxton in a very risky move that shows the kind of person you are, how loyal you are. If that vote went bad for Ken, would have went bad for you. You were everywhere defending Ken Paxton, your friend who has endorsed you, and you did it knowing that there could be a great political cost. And now here, you're on the flip side of this now. I mean, this is a political gift. Kay Granger, what happened here with the speaker vote is a political gift to you. There's no way to spin it otherwise. It's outrageous how she has conducted herself, not just throughout this process, John, because, voting for the Steve Scalise's after he's withdrawn, but how she conducted herself leading up to this point, because I wanted to make sure that I showed the people's point of view when Matt Gaetz was calling for the motion to vacate, even though, frankly, I thought it was rather strategically stupid. Without a plan, you don't do things. If Republicans get Mike Johnson, they got lucky. That's a fact. But I understand where the voter was coming from. And your opponent is perhaps one of a select few that had an outsized impact on these failures, John. And, let me just get you to react to that before we move on.
Sure. Well, look, I think it's a culmination of a couple of things that you've been talking about. A, The Republican Party has got to come to grips with the terms that President Trump is the leader of this party now. He is the person who has energized and fired up the base. He's the one who's gotten people to come out to vote that haven't been voting in ages. And he's the one who's making inroads into communities and groups that heretofore never would have considered voting Republican. So this anti-Trump, kind of group that's curled up in the fetal position, sucking their thumbs, they just need to get over it, because it's the will of the people, and they don't listen to the people. They don't understand that the country extends outside the Acela corridor. And everybody that I talk to, it's amazing. Look, I put my neck out there for Ken because it was the right thing to do. He was in the right, and he represented the will of 4.3 million voters here in Texas. And, consequences be darned. I mean, sometimes you just have to take a stand. But, the people who I spoke to who were even upset that Matt did do that motion to vacate, and, I personally kind of liked it, because candidly speaking, if the Congress is in turmoil and they're not getting anything done, well, great. Because right now, in my estimation, they're not solving our problems. They're the ones causing our problems. But, they were all appeased by Jim Jordan being nominated. And we thought, well, hey, here's somebody who, the moderates can work with, because he's an honorable man and he does what he says he's going to do. And, but he really appeals to the MAGA base. And, he's going to be the most conservative speaker since Newt Gingrich. And then Kay purposely went out there and undermined it. She took her members of the Appropriations Committee and whipped them to vote against Jim Jordan. And I know this for a fact, because a very good friend of mine who's very politically connected picked up the phone and called Jake Elsey and said, Elsey, what are you doing? We need Jim Jordan. He said, well, if I want to maintain my position on appropriations, Kay said I have to. So
say that again. Say that again.
Kay Granger did not only vote against Jim Jordan, she whipped the members of Appropriations. And look, if you saw, the bulk of the 25 came out of Appropriations and Armed Forces. Those two committees, those cardinals, made sure that the people on their committees voted, because A, they were throwing a temper tantrum about losing their ally in Kevin McCarthy. And B, they didn't want anybody who was going to stop the gravy train of this unbridled spending. It doesn't matter that we're over a $2 trillion deficit and it's uncapped, in large part thanks to Congresswoman Granger. But no, that we don't maintain our power. We can't appease our K Street masters and our donor class if we don't keep spending like drunken sailors. So yeah, you're right. I mean, it's kind of interesting to see the divine providence and things. But, we went out there and supported Ken. He prevailed, as we knew he would. And we went out there and we supported Jim Jordan for speaker, and Kay undercut it. And she has drawn a backlash as a result.
Yeah, actually, I want to pop myself back in. I want to play that because, we've shown the polling before, polled your district. It's a majority MAGA district, talking about what Gaetz was talking about, MAGA ascendant, what he was talking about with Steve Bannon there. MAGA is ascendant in your district. And for people who don't know, they're not familiar with Texas 12. It's a district that, even before redistricting, it's a district that Kay Granger could, like a swamp creature like her, could really, kind of fly under the radar, continuously get reelected. Most of it is Tarrant County, which is more wealthy and more educated, even though it's still Republican. It's the most populous Republican county in the country. And then there's a piece of the 12th district that has Parker County, which is more, I would say, grassroots based, conservative, more, really less traditional Republican, free traders. These are MAGA. I mean, these are flag flying MAGA. And she almost bit the bullet in 2020. Voters pretty much had it with her at that point, but she did cut a deal. The president endorsed her. She reneged on her end of that deal. I really can't say this enough. Every time I talk about Kay Granger, I got to bring this up, because if voters, it's not just, diehard Trump voters. It's a tell of what a piece of crap you are. And I know you don't have to talk about your opponent like that, but I will. It's a tell what a piece of crap you are when you give somebody your word, they deliver. I mean, that's what Congress is all about. Status quos. I scratch your back, you scratch mine. I make a deal, you do that. Sadly, that's the ugly business of Congress and sausage making. And she thought that it would be all right to take the most coveted thing the president can give you, which is his endorsement, and then stab him in the back. And as a result, Chris Putnam, who by far was the America First candidate, he lost, even though most people polling on both sides believed he was ahead in the primary by a few points. And he still didn't lose by much. He didn't. He got over 40% of the vote. But here now, I'm going to play this clip because this is something you posted on your Twitter or your X, formerly known as Twitter account. And there were people showed up to her office to let their voices be heard, earlier this week. So I want to play this. Let me rock this and we'll come back and get your reaction.
Okay.
And if she can't, then it's time to replace her. And John O'Shea, there's your answer right there.
Fuck, John.
So I mean, that's what we're looking for. You know, we want to know why she can't get behind Jim Jordan. You know,
Yeah.
I mean,
I know it's low.
No reason. I mean, he's the best man for the job.
Yeah, over 90%. You know, they
Yeah, that is in her field office here in Fort Worth.
Like Kevin McCarthy, but over 90% of the caucus is now voting with Jim Jordan. So why is Kay Granger holding out?
That doesn't make any sense.
She hasn't represented us for years.
Well said.
And now we know, though, what you just said, John. Now we know it was more than her just throwing her vote to Steve Scalise. It was her using her influence on the committee and her influence even over other committees, or what she thought she had, to bully people to sabotage Jim Jordan, who is, Mike Johnson, like you said, and I'm going to, I'll play the rest of this in a second. But like you said, Mike Johnson is going to be, if he gets through, he's going to be the most conservative speaker since at least Newt Gingrich. I think he might even blow Newt out because, Newt gave Pelosi the template for a speakership dictatorship. Not by his doing. It's just he did do that. I'm not sure he was thinking about the future, when a Democrat did take the gavel back. But, it's possible because Mike is, I think he's actually personally more conservative than Newt was, but Newt governed conservatively. There's no doubt. But here she is, sabotaging Jim, who is more, I would say, still more representative because Mike is like Southern conservative. Jim Jordan is like, that's why Trump wins Ohio by 10. And even if another Republican can win it, he's going to win it by like a point or two. It would go back to the Bush days, and we know that because we've polled it. But yeah, I'm not sure how much longer. Let me play the rest of this. I'm not sure how much longer Kay Granger is going to be able to deal with this district. Has had problems with her in the past.
All right. And look, remember the name John O'Shea.
That's right outside her office, is it not?
John O'Shea.
Yep. Yeah, they're talking to her staffers.
Is that her staffers?
This is great. They sent this to you, man.
I've been following him on Twitter.
He is the real deal. I do believe he's the real deal. Yeah.
I like what he's saying.
Yes.
Yeah, they listen, she really did herself dirty with this one, John. She did herself dirty with this one. I mean, this is bad, for her. So this is giving you a unique opportunity. It's hard to run against an incumbent, especially one who's got the position that she has, the friends that she has, the special interest that she has. I mean, if you go to her FEC report, she's not getting any grassroots support. It's all interest groups.
All lobbyist money.
Yep. So I know it's been tough and it's a hard slog, but I mean, now you're really starting to see some momentum. Tell us about, what's been going on, what you've been up to, because I know, but the audience probably doesn't.
Well, it's funny. In fact, our campaign motto is "It's time for new leadership," and I didn't realize though that we were going to basically redo the entire House Republican leadership in one fell swoop before the election even came around. Because I mean, think about it. This is historic. What's happening right now? McCarthy gets vacated, then Scalise, goes down in defeat, and then Emmer, who would have been Paul Ryan 2.0, he gets dealt a magnanimous defeat, and President Trump gets to gloat about it because it was the right call for him to make. And oh, by the way, he does have sway in the party. For people to pretend otherwise is just staggering to me. But yeah, we're starting to notice a real uptick of involvement. People are starting to focus now fairly heavily. It's not just a speakership vote. It's just the world is on fire right now.
Yeah.
Whenever I give one of my talks, I always say, who here is happy with the direction the country's headed? You
Yeah.
know, and I've yet to have any person say they're happy with it. I have yet to have anybody say that they think there's any positive thing that's occurring in this country right now. I mean, our borders are open and we're being invaded. We have a wave of fentanyl deaths. We have human trafficking occurring with the cartels in control of our southern border. You know, we have world wars threatening to pop up all over the place now in the Middle East and in Eastern Europe. And nobody's talking about the crises that are happening in Africa. You know, inflation out of control. We're trying to decarbonize our economy, and you know, Bidenomics. Boy, there's a great coin that I bet they wish they had rethought. But I mean, it's just there's nothing positive going on right now.
Yeah.
And the only thing I do keep ending my talks with is to say, hey, but you know, 2019 was pretty darn good, and we've got the man who led us to where the country was then, and he clearly is the presumptive nominee for the Republican Party. So, you know, we're getting lots of requests for meet and greets. We're going to speak at lots of different events. The Tarrant County Party just elected a new chair who is a very America First type person, very plugged in, very connected. So I'm happy about the direction that the Tarrant County Party is going, and things are going across the state. In fact, talking about Ken, he actively is going out and endorsing candidates who are primarying the state reps who voted to impeach him, and they're gaining a lot of momentum. I think these people are in for a rude awakening, because here in Texas we have the same kind of bubble. It's around Austin. And those representatives do not represent their people, and people are fed up. That's what they keep saying. They go, look, you know, the Democrats, they're demons, but they tell you who they are. It's these weak-willed Republicans or Republicans who've been co-opted, and they're ready for somebody who's stiff-spined and is willing to go speak truth to power and actually go take on their causes and make their voices heard. And candidly speaking, there's just not too many of them. Too many of the Republicans in our party, and unfortunately, I consider Congresswoman Kay Granger an equal creature of the swamp. But you know, truth be told, they're cowards. In fact, really, frankly, the bravest thing she's done here recently is actually vote to torpedo Jim Jordan's speakership. But unfortunately for her, it's gotten the spotlight, and people are calling her out. I mean, when's the last time you've heard another congressman like Jim Banks did saying that she should be stripped of her chair position of appropriations?
Yeah, that's true. That's absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a brave new world. And I think that's because I put age up here, but there was another poll I wanted to show. This is of the 12th district, but a new poll just out in Texas today. And you brought up that Trump is the presumptive nominee. I think, you know, that it goes hand in hand. His arrival on the scene really did change the conversation Republican voters were willing to have with their elected officials. And then they have to respond somewhat. And even if it means they respond inch by inch, the difference, pre 2015 to now, and what things you just brought up is huge. I mean, there were a few things here and there. Dave Bratt beat Eric Cantor in a primary out of nowhere. There was a few things, but nothing like this, John. And new poll out by University of Texas. Yeah, Texas politics now. Trump is up over Biden in Texas. That's a state they always think, that they can poll. And by the way, go look at the polls in Texas in 2020. It showed a very close race, and that Biden may be even able to pluck it off. Nate Silver's 5-turd fake had Florida both blue. All right. So, and Trump won it. He won it kind of by this margin here. But there is a shift happening. This is age in your district. This is why, it's the idea that somebody like Kay Granger can hang around forever is just unbelievable. The only group of people in the Republican primary electorate that was close to saying I'm more traditional than America First was 75 plus. The super seniors, there are a lot of them. They'll vote like at least 8% in general electorate. It'll be more in a primary. But everywhere else, and you can see that here, with the exception that 45 to 64 really blows up. I mean, they're really America First. It almost is a Christmas tree effect, which tells you there's really no future in the old ways of doing things in the Republican Party. There's other demographics there. You can see that as well. Trump now has a 50-point lead. So again, even in districts like yours, this was the traditional Republican area. Like if they don't have a home here anymore, John, they don't have a home anywhere.
No, they don't. And here's the thing, it's amazing to me that the establishment continues to attack and try and wrest the party away from Trump and the
It's
America
unbelievable.
First movement when they should be on their knees thanking him because he frankly resuscitated the Republican Party.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
recall after George W. and then, Mitt Romney and John McCain, I mean, the Republican Party was in real trouble. And it was President Trump who energized the base and got people to turn back out and vote for him. So, they're just going to have to come to grips with the fact that they are a dying minority in the party, and that it's America first now. And if they don't like it, then they can go be never Trumpers and go vote with the Democrats if that's what they want to do.
And honestly, I have a theory, and I think I'm right. They've been voting with the Democrats anyway. A lot of
Yeah.
these people, if we would pull their ballots, John, and we could find out which ballot was theirs, I guarantee you a ton of people in the House of Representatives voted for Joe Biden. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. He probably, as a percentage, even more in the Senate. They're already voting. I really do believe that. There are candidates in Ohio right now who refuse to vote for Donald Trump. It's outwardly refused to vote for him. And by the way, he's leading the primary. I don't know how much
Yeah.
longer that's going to last because this happened with JD Vance too. And then JD Vance took the lead. Again, I do think Trump has to get on, like what he did with the speakership really should be a temp. I know he's got a million things on his plate, and that's part of what lawfare is about, right? To keep him, but he's got to run with a slate of candidates. Let me get your, this is what he said about Johnson. And then let me get your take on that. Okay.
Respected by everybody. I hear it looks like it's really good. I haven't had one negative comment about him. Everybody likes him. He's respected by all, and that's something we need. And it looks like that's going to happen. So that'll be a wonderful thing. I put out a group today on him, and I did one last night. You saw that. We think there's somebody that could be really spectacular, and maybe for many years to come, he'll be very good. So we're very happy about that.
Yeah, and I know it's kind of low, guys, but you got the take. What do you make of that, John? I mean, the media was making out like he had no pull here. And after the break, I don't know if you got time to hang around a bit, but after the break, I'm going to go over a story. He killed Emmer in the crib, bro. He killed Emmer in the crib. Even Politico knows that.
Well, Emmer was one of the biggest never Trumpers around. And you rightly point out, he was largely, him and McCarthy used the Congressional Leadership Fund to kill the 2022 wave because they would have rather had a close, small majority than to have a large, packed America First group in the House. And I mean, just think about what that says, that these people are so more concerned about their own interests than the will of the American voter. It's staggering to me. I mean, that's the one thing that's been the most eye-opening about this is that so few people are in this for the right reasons, and so few people are willing to be principled and actually remember that they're a servant of the people that they represent.
Yeah, it's so damn sad. 2022 was one of the most politically tragic stories. Luckily for them, Ron DeSantis came along and overshadowed them as the greatest Greek tragedy of our lifetime. Because this is now, today is the day. I want to ask you about this too before the break real quick. Today is the day. They're at a time. This is the end of the self-imposed countdown that one of his own advisors, and today, of course, he comes out and he says, it was a stupid thing to say. He's not one of my advisors. Yes, he is. He's been throwing events for you. And I'm talking, of course, about Jeff Rowe. He's been throwing events with donors. By the way, illegally. Your PAC cannot throw fundraisers for you. Only you. Like, there are rules. You can invite the candidate as a headline speaker, but they cannot be the headline for every single event, and they cannot coordinate with the PAC to throw these events, which they've done. I mean, whether you like her or hate her, love her or hate her, Laura Loomer busted them in Utah doing that. I mean, that was 100% illegal campaign coordination. But, it is what it is. We're at the final day of when Jeff Rowe said, look, we got 60 days to beat Donald Trump. We need $5 million now or $15 million now. We need $5 million a month at least in order to even, be viable. We're at the end of the rope. We know what the fundraising was. It was not sufficient enough. They way missed Jeff Rowe's own goal, and that's combined between the campaign, the PACs, and committees. So what purpose or positive force at this point, John, does it play for any of these candidates to be doing this? A new poll out today from Rasmussen shows a majority of Republican voters just want to cancel the debates. It's over. It's over. I don't understand, other than you're hoping Donald Trump gets locked up, which he's not going to be before the election. You're hoping Donald Trump gets locked up and thrown in jail, and that's it. I mean, even if that was true and you're taking yourself as like a savior here, it still isn't positive for the Republican Party. There's nothing positive about these people. John, they're friggin' sampling errors. All right? Most people's sampling error, we're one of the lower ones in a primary nationally. It's like 3.1, 3.5. A lot of these other polls are like 5% sampling errors. DeSantis is down to 8% in some of these polls. He's a freaking sampling error, John. What the hell are they doing?
Candidly speaking, if they were honorable people, they would bow out now and endorse President Trump, because we're wasting time, energy, and resources. The problem with the Republicans, so Republicans plan and discuss strategy while the Democrats are plotting logistics. They've got a war machine raised, ready to go. And candidly speaking, even if Biden doesn't make it to the primary, they'll just plug and play, because they've got the systems and the machines in place. And here we are holding debates where the presumptive nominee, who's lapped the entire field combined and then some, isn't even participating and is being tied up in lawfare. And oh, by the way, he's still rising in the polls as the rest of these other people continue to sink. I mean, if candidly, in good conscience, how can they be spending their donors' money on things like this when they know? I mean, what are they auditioning for, an advisory position on CNN or some different think tank? I don't get it, because they have zero chance. There's zero momentum or energy behind them. Again, I can't state this strongly enough. The Republican Party was revitalized by President Trump, and the people here in the field, and I know because I talk to them on a regular basis, it's Trump or bust.
And they're not, this isn't what they don't, I know I'm backing up against commercial here, but this is what they don't understand. Even if their Hail Mary comes to fruition, what you just said is so important. Those people are not going to vote for them anyway.
No.
They're not super partisan, loyal to the Republican Party. In fact, they've done the opposite. The 22 election showed that's obvious. I mean, Trump was outperforming some of those candidates by enormous margins in these battleground states. I mean, something we just never saw in 16 and 20. And now here we are. And I just don't understand how, until I saw the ad from Americans for Prosperity on the weekend, and I guess that really did drill it into my head, that they've probably done as much as they can to convince themselves of that nonsense, that lunacy, that it's only Donald Trump who will drive Democrats to the polls. If you nominate someone other than Donald Trump, we can win with low turnout. That's what the ad said from the Americans for Prosperity. It was the most pathetic thing I've ever seen, especially since all of people like me, again, we're not alone. All of the general population out there that are targets to go out and get registered, to go vote, are more Republican than they've been ever in our lifetime. Never is the adult population more Republican than the registered voter or the likely voter populations. Never. And now here we are, and all they're doing, like you said, is not a finite amount of money. They act like there is a finite, excuse me. They act like there's a never-ending amount of donor money that can be used and tapped, and that is just not true. And that's another thing that comes to RFK, folks, which I'm going to bring up. I'll save that for a later segment. But, RFK is taking money from potential Trump supporters, and, I mean, there are people out there supporting him doing it. It's insane. There are donors who are not going to give to Donald Trump regardless, but then there are donors who would if these other people would just do what Perry Johnson did. And meanwhile, I just got done, John, and I've talked to you about this. John knows a little bit more than the audience does. I've been kind of holding this tight to the vest here. But this new technology that's going to revolutionize campaigning, I know because I'm the only one who has it. There is, I'll just say it, the RNC does have a version of it, and they are completely clueless on how to use it. Completely clueless. They have no idea what the full potential of it is, John. And meanwhile, all these other people who've spent $100 million so far to try to stop this guy, they don't know about it. They have, and if they've heard something about it, they have no idea about its full potential. Democrats do. It essentially replaces every one person. It's 1,000. 1,000 people. Think about that. They already have way more of, I would say, even more efficient volunteer base. Now they're going to have an additional technological edge if Republicans don't pull their heads out of their butt. Look, John, I'm going to take a real quick break. There's one more thing. I mean, I don't know if you got time, but do you have time?
Sure. Yeah, I do.
Okay. All right. Let me take a real quick commercial and come back. I just wanted to ask you about one more thing. All right,
Sure.
folks. Don't forget, if you like the videos, don't forget to subscribe. The best place to follow us, of course, is on Locals, peoplespundit.locals.com. But look, this is break time. Yeah, thank you, Laura. I'm going to tell you about a deal from our friends at Jam and Bean, Michigan-based. Also happened, like I always say, my little mantra, there were no political heroes during COVID. There were only patriots and people. And that is exactly who Jam and Bean is. But they also happen to be amazing in the art of coffee roasting, which I am drinking right now. Their gourmet popcorn is the bomb. You guys know it. Regular routine viewers know that I'm going to turn into a Jam and Bean popcorn junkie. It's gourmet popcorn at a reasonable price. Some of it's ridiculous, and it's all natural. It tastes delicious. Freeze-dried candy even is awesome. I mean, everything. So when you sign up for a new subscription, use the promo code TPP40 at checkout, and that'll knock 40% off right off the jump, right off the bat to the cost of your new subscription, and yet you will still get 10% off every month when that subscription renews. Michigan maple syrup is a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Let me tell you that. But again, jamandbean.com, promo code TPP40. They got a blend for everybody. If you're like me and you like a dark roast, but have to drink something medium and later in the day, I would highly recommend any of their media. I like Penitent Man, but there's a lot of the good stuff out there because it tastes so bold. It's like a dark roast. It'll give you that pick-me-up that you need without giving you heartburn and everything else that comes along with getting old and drinking coffee late in the day like I am. All right, again, jamandbean.com, promo code TPP40, and send us your feedback. We would love to hear it. All right, and we're back. I want to get back more to this story because, you've been talking really about Trump's ability to, move this. He saved the Republican Party from irrelevancy. And he did. Whether you like him or not, you have to admit that he did. So what do you think? Let me ask you this, because if that's the case and Mike Johnson is going to be the speaker, Trump played this role in putting this mess back together. What do you think should be the priorities? Because like you, I don't want them to do a whole lot. John, I don't want them to do a whole lot. I don't. What do you think should be their priorities, though, if they return with a new speaker, Mike Johnson, instead of Tom Emmer, like what could have happened?
Well, I mean, candidly speaking, look, with the Democrats controlling the Senate and then, whoever's pulling the strings in the White House, I mean, we're not going to get any of our legislative initiatives or packages passed. I know they were talking about the new border bill that they got. Look, we don't need any new border laws. We just need to actually enforce the laws that are on the books. Frankly, the only thing I think that they can really accomplish right now, other than additional oversight, and really that's unleash the oversight, because candidly speaking, I'm ready for some accountability, whether it be over the COVID vaccines and the whole virus to begin with, and our role in developing it, that it just, again, is incomprehensible. Whether it's the border and why that invasion is being allowed to occur, whether it's, the Biden crime family, Inc., those oversight committees need to really kick into high gear and be unleashed to go do it the way that they know with all the subpoena power. But the other thing is pass clean appropriations bills, something that, oh, by the way, we were promised back in January. And again, my opponent, chairwoman of appropriations, fell asleep at the wheel. They left for a 6-week vacation during the middle of the summer after all the committee work had been done, and she had only gotten the Veteran Administration appropriations bill passed. When they went and passed this continuing resolution, which set off the whole motion to vacate, they had only passed 3 other of the 12 appropriation bills.
Yeah.
Why is it that businesses, heck, even personal families, they have to balance a budget. They have to, lay out their spending. They don't just get to use some unlimited open checkbook. And yet, for some reason, our federal government can't discipline itself. We're spending ourselves into oblivion, and hopefully this speaker will help rein it in. Given what he's laid out as priorities, it looks like he's going to be somebody much more fiscally conservative, and we can start getting back to fiscal sanity before we go the way of Argentina and have the dollar lose its global reserve currency status.
Yeah, just this is the one thing that the point the base has that it's very hard to refute, even if you wanted a more coherent action plan for this. When was it going to be enough? So 20 trillion wasn't, 25 trillion wasn't, 28 trillion wasn't, 30 trillion was it? Was it going to be 35 trillion? Was it 40 trillion? When was the appropriate time to tell the leadership of both parties? And this is supposed to be, why does it matter more with Republicans? Because they're supposed to be the party of fiscal conservatism. They're supposed to care. Democrats never pretended to really care. They use it. The 90s are gone, long gone. They've never cared, with the exception of a few short years in the 90s. They've never cared about fiscal sanity. So they never pretended to be something they were not. Republicans do and did. And nobody's ever provided me with that, with a sufficient, a satisfactory answer. And when I get calls from people saying, Rich, don't rile up the crowd, man, come on, help us out. My answer to them is that simple. When was it an appropriate, or when was it the right time for them to finally stand up and say, be the freaking people you say you're going to be when you're running for election?
Right.
You're going to destroy us. No country has ever assumed and then maintained a debt like this, John. Rates are going up. Jamie Dimon, anybody catch his comments yesterday? I know from, you were in the financial sector like me before all of this. Jamie Dimon sounds real freaking concerned. He said yesterday to the, comments he made, and also took some questions. He basically, and he's normally kind of chipper, and he gives the impression he can weather anything. He said, you all have this like fantasy in your head that the Fed controls inflation. They did what they could. Interest rates are now high. It looks like the CPI has come down, but we're still spending well beyond our means. Our debt is still, the bomb is there, ready to go off. And he flat said something I never thought Jamie Dimon would say. He said, we need real leadership. It was a direct comment that this president's got to go. This president's got to go. Just a few short years ago, we were all right. We had problems, but we could manage them if we grew and if we were sane. This president's got to go. That's what he said. I've never heard Jamie Dimon sound like that, like he sounded yesterday. Last thing. What are your thoughts on that from, your financial sector experience, John? Everyone's pretending like we're out of the woods because the freaking CPI came down, as if that's a credible gauge anyway, because it's not really. It's just a relative gauge. It's not a credible one. But they're acting like the Fed has any more tricks. They're a one-trick pony, brother.
No, well, yeah, and they're not even really very good at that.
No.
And look, let's face it right now. So they're raising rates while our government continues to spend at near record deficit levels. Yeah. Those two forces are opposite. And so it's staggering to me. People, I don't think, understand the difference between the deficit and the debt. The deficit being the amount that we spend over what we take in every year, and then we have to finance that. So this is like a family living off of credit cards. And right now, we owe over $250,000 per every U.S. household. So imagine that. Your family brings in $50,000 a year in disposable income, and yet you spend $70,000 a year, and then you just put it on a credit card, and you just pay the interest. Well, guess what? The rates are going up, so the amount of interest that we pay each year is going up. So all of a sudden, it's now we're going to surpass $1 trillion in interest expense just on the national debt as we continue to pile on debt. So I think, unfortunately, Brother Dimon is very aware of the situation, because I believe his bank is sitting on over $100 billion in unrealized losses on government treasuries, which are supposed to be risk-free investments. But inflation has gone up so hard, so fast, and the Fed has been taking steps to try and rein it in, while our federal government doesn't seem to be on the same page. In fact, they are working counterintuitively. But again, it's because they don't have our best interests at heart, because what they're saying is that if they don't continue to juice this economy, which is basically like trying to, pour blood into a dead corpse, but if they don't do it, then everything's going to collapse, and it's going to collapse right before the election. And they don't want their voters, they don't want their donors to be upset with them. Well, I'm afraid that we're heading for a recession, and it's going to make the 07-08 financial crisis look minor in comparison.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, this is Once upon a time, I had at least a little bit of hope. We could grow our way out of this. We do three,
Well,
maybe
with President
4.
Trump, we could have.
That we could have at that time. That's what I'm saying. I remember when he ran, and he was saying, 2% growth is not good enough. 2% growth, GDP growth annualized is not good enough. We could do 3. Hell, we could do 4, and everyone mocked him for it. We got to 3, and then COVID hit right before the housing market was coming around, especially, home builder, new residential sales, new residential construction, along with home sales. It was starting to fill the markets. We had an inventory squeeze there for a while. So even when the economy was doing very well under Trump, that fourth piston wasn't firing, and that was the housing market. And right before COVID, it started to. And I really feel like we didn't hit our full potential, and we could have. And then we could have grown our way out of it, John, along with some sanity. It would have taken it's going to take a long time, but along with some fiscal sanity, we could have grown and cut, but without austerity, our way out of it. At some point, it's going to be gruesome austerity, and that's or not, and it all just blows up. Somebody at some point's got to be an adult, and someone's got to step up and make the difficult decisions. And that's why it's a positive development. People like you are running, because the people serving right now are just not, their character is not sufficient, man. And they're not big enough people to rise to the occasion. Every generation, Americans, they faced seemingly insurmountable problems, but they rose to the occasion. We are not doing that. We are failing where everyone else rose to the occasion. That's sad. But tell people where they can follow you, John, because it ain't over yet. It ain't over yet.
No, yeah. If you want to help restore some sanity to the government, and in fact, elect an America First candidate who will be there to support President Trump, to help codify his initiative, so they don't all have to be done under executive order and then whisked away with the stroke of a pen like Biden did the first day he walked into the White House. You can follow me at OSHEAforTexas.com. That's OSHEA, the number 4, Texas.com. I am taking on a 14-term incumbent. She has been in office since the Clinton administration. And as Rich alluded to, she's not fundraising well with the public, but she gets all the lobbyist money that she wants. So this truly is a proverbial David versus Goliath race. But as we all remember, that worked out pretty well. And I'm confident this race will as well.
Yeah, John, thanks for joining us, especially short notice like that. I really appreciate it. Folks, go check him out. He's John O'Shea, O'Shea for Congress on Twitter, Getter Truth, all of it. And, of course, O'Shea for Congress with the number 4 is the website. Thanks, John. See you soon, my friend.
Thanks, Rich. All my love to Laura.
Always. And right back at you.
All right. Bye.
There she is. See you soon, brother. John O'Shea, folks. All right. Man, the hour is late, isn't it? It just is. You have a conversation with someone like John. He's a serious, thoughtful, intelligent person. And, we get beyond the stupid little platitudes we hear all the time. Look, I'll tell you, that's what I love about John. He's like realistic. He's like, look, it's a 14-term, incumbent. So I need, to really mount a serious challenge. But the amount of attention I've gotten, calls over the last week and a half, 10 days, that really, bode well for him. So that's just great. Yeah, he's the one to beat Linda. He's the one to beat her. He is. She almost went down last time. Chris did not have the platform. He was a decent campaigner, but I've never met anyone who met John and doesn't like John. It's a little very different. He appeals to both the traditionally conservative wing of the party plus the MAGA wing of the party. And he's straddling the world that I think a Ted Cruz was trying to straddle, still has been trying to straddle, will try to straddle in the future because he wants to run for president again. But he really hasn't been able to. By the way, that poll John and I were talking about in Texas, it's not good news for Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz in a lot of trouble. Do I still think that he's the favorite? Yeah, he's the favorite, but he's been in trouble before. And luckily for him, at this point anyway, Trump will be on the ballot. There's a couple polls that I want to bring up. It was a poll from Ipsos that was done for PRRI. It was Biden +2, Trump way ahead with independents, but the electorate was 4 points more Democratic. This is another world. This is not going to happen. And they did a national poll also, though, like Morning Consult, where they did basically, and I'll pull that up in a sec, where they did the battleground states as well. Morning Consult is essentially showing a tied race. They are tied, dead even. It may have inched to Trump +1, but I thought it was tied. But in the battleground states, Trump with a comfortable electoral college lead. Even in this poll, which is heavily Democratic, folks, 2020 was D+1. The battleground states were heavily Republican. Pennsylvania was R+1. All right. Florida was like R+8. It was crazy. All right. So this world, these people are like fabricating. It's not going to happen. And it tells me, because I don't know that they waited for party. Maybe they did. But if you have a D+4 national sample, you did something wrong with two very important variables, demographics. Here we go again. Geography and education. Geography and education. And you cannot simply just wait for education and hope that it works out. That is one piece of a larger puzzle. How you are dealing with geography, if it looks on the surface to be, okay, defendable. If you come up with a sample that's that much more Democratic with Republicans in the 20s, you have to revisit how you are weighting or dealing with geography. So I would strongly suggest you have to do something with your data collection modes. This is online. I don't know what to tell you. I'd have to look at what you're doing, but maybe you're not dynamically or doing balance collection. I don't know, but you are screwing up bad, and the electorate should never be that Democratic. Nevertheless, in the battleground states, Trump 49, Biden 43. The battleground states here are Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. And honestly, I gotta tell you, I got asked yesterday, right, Laura? Journalist calls, journalist asks, hey, can you do me a favor? Send me a list of what you think of the battleground states are, And minute, what I really said is, I'm going to have a different list than you. Why? Because some of these battleground states I'm seeing polled, this is a better list. And let me put it up, make it bigger. And by the way, Laura, they're requesting a photo. We really do need more photos. I like the idea, though. Like I said, you're gonna have to take some with me. Sorry, Charlie, because I loved your idea so much. We're gonna have to do that. It looks like there was a vote. I got to check it out and see where we're at. Yeah, there was a vote. So anyway, this is a more okay. LaMalfa voted Johnson. That was a problem. Stefanik gave the nomination speech. Chance of Mike. LaLota voted Johnson. Lawler voted Johnson. LaMalfa voted Johnson. Kelly voted Johnson. Jordan votes Johnson. This is John James voted for Johnson. I'm just looking at it. So did Hearns. Kay Granger buckled, voted for Johnson. Don't worry, Kay. We're not gonna let you do a twist and turn now, because you're in deep trouble. All right, we're gonna make sure everyone knows who you are. Bacon voted for Johnson. Buck voted for Johnson. It looks like that's it. That's where we're at. Duarte caved, even though he told somebody this morning he was never going to vote for him. So I think you're going to get. I think this is it done? Is it a done deal? I'm just looking through the caucus here. Looks like that's got to be it. It's got to be. I'm just looking through all the votes. Yep. I'm looking. I like to make sure that there it is. And no, I'm telling you right now, there is no praise for some of the people that did what they did. They did not know how this was going to end up. They were floating around like, I don't even know how to put it. I mean, I'm trying to be nice here because, I'm giving some of them the benefit of the doubt, but they basically were aiming. No, I'm going to give me a good example here, Laura. When like you just kind of bumbling around, but you just happen to like fall into the right situation. It's like what's that guy in that movie? He's just a total moron and everything goes wrong. He messes it up. But if it wasn't for his bad luck, he wouldn't fall into these great things. God, I can't remember. Not bad luck. Maybe it is. Actually. It's an older movie. But it's like, that's how this went here. All right. But anyway, we'll get back into that. It's 1:32. We got time. So bear with me and I'll get you a list. I really don't know that anybody voted against them. Look at what I'm looking at. But looking at somebody, Donald Trump beating him like a drum. This is a more accurate battleground state list. Although I honestly think that Arizona and Georgia at this point are leaning Trump by it. Look, if that's the battleground and they got a Trump +6, I mean, Michigan is among the hardest of those to win, along with Nevada. So if Trump is up by 49-43, I mean, that's taking every single one of those. In the battleground states, it was an average of Biden by a little over 2 in our polling. That included, by the way, Minnesota, where we overstated him by about 3 points. So if Trump would be up by about 6 right now, I still don't know how the Silver State is going to shake out because Democrats have a lot of tricks up their sleeves. I do think, and I'm not sure I want to say too much of this, but I do think a lot of people are kind of missing out on that opportunity, and that with a modest effort, that state, you could do a lot of damage. Because 20,000, 30,000 votes is a huge swing in the Silver State. But let's assume Trump is doing better in Nevada and Michigan than he is in the rest of these states on this board. And Trump is up considerably in Georgia and Arizona. Last one we saw was from Morning Consult, and there was another poll that did the battleground states as well. I can't really remember which one it is right now, but they basically had Trump up by 5 in Arizona and by 5 in Georgia, roughly around the same. This is a rout. This is a freaking rout. If you're a Trump supporter, you want this election to go down real quick. Pure luck. Thank you, Laura. Somebody give us that. Is there somebody I got to thank for that? Who? You found it? Thank you, Laura. And they're total idiots. Martin Short, Danny Glover, right? Or not Danny Glover, Martin Short. Yeah. And Danny Glover's the private eye, or he's some kind of security dude or something. That's totally it. And Martin Short is a total moron, and everything goes wrong because he's an idiot. Yet somehow it always ends up to the benefit of him, except for at the very end. But yeah, it's hilarious. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what that means. I don't know. I mean, I'll get to some of those questions later, but it's a wrap, right? I mean, this is done, Jonathan. It's done, right? Yeah. So yeah, there's where this is right here. There was also a poll I did want to go over in Massachusetts real quick, because even though it's a Biden +2 national, that's a big deal. The only thing is, though, look who they put on the ballot. Hogan and Manchin. That's supposed to be a no labels kind of thing. And folks, there is no way Larry Hogan is pulling an equal amount he's pulling more from Trump than he is pulling from Biden. We've been down this road before with some of the others that are kind of like in the mold of Larry Hogan. I would love to do it. And in this next national poll that we do, and I'm probably even going to do it in the Rust Belt. I am. I'm going to do different ones with no labels, then West, then Kennedy. It's just that we really can't expect some of these people to end up on all of these ballots. If you missed it, you didn't see it, go through Monday's episode starting at just before the hour mark. We did a lot of boring and dry work on ballot access in the different battleground states. And I know that was like trying to figure out a way to do it where it was still entertaining because it's nothing but a bunch of laws, but it gave you an idea of how difficult it is to get on the ballot. Even libertarians are going to have a problem with some of those states that you remember where we read the requirements, 3% in the prior election, 4% in the prior election. It's usually anywhere between 1% and 4%, 2% and 4%. Well, George Jorgensen did so poorly in several of those states that she squandered the Johnson gains. So the Libertarian Party is going to have to go over it all over again. What do I mean by that? Your party will immediately qualify if you do X percentage of the total statewide vote. And they did not. Gary Johnson made it easy for Jorgensen because Gary Johnson got on a lot of ballots through that hard work and grassroots, but then he had a lot of support. A lot for a libertarian. And so he automatically qualified her for several subsequent ballots. Now, then she underperformed and she fell below those standards. So it's going to be very difficult. I'm not sure we know what the ballot, we're not sure. We don't know what the ballot looks like. Nationally, I would be shocked. Even a no labels candidate was able to get on the ballot everywhere. For instance, Arizona and Georgia are in this with those candidates. Well, good luck getting on the ballot in those states. They are among the most difficult states to get on the ballot. I can't use the word impossible, but Georgia is friggin' hard. And by the way, maybe I will just start answering those questions now because let me do some announcements too. Why? Because we do have to cut a little early, and I'm going to tell you why. Jack Posobiec at 2:05. Laura, when Steve? Yeah, can you grab that for me? If you're watching Real America's Voice throughout the day, you're going to see it anyway. But we have Steve Gruber later today, a little after 3, if I remember correctly. Jack Posobiec at 2:05. And then there's also, I have to get ready for a conversation about, I want to share this with you guys. I just don't know when it is the right time to share some of this new tech. I've been kind of teasing out some. If you go to the front of Big Data Poll right now, you'll see we're already starting to do it with several of people. There is going to be a conversation about artificial intelligence and its use in campaigning. It's just not going to occur before 2024. It will be done after. We probably need legislation. We probably do. And they're nowhere near it. Go ahead, Laura.
No, Jack is on Friday at 2:35. Today is Steve Gruber at 3:15. People can see you. Thank you. And whatchamacallit? And you have a phone call later. That's what you're thinking of.
Okay. Well, because this stuff is very important. And again, Republicans, they're not totally clueless, but they just don't understand it fully yet. And Democrats are ahead of them. And what's a bit tragic here is that, tragic if you're a Republican, if they were more focused and more unified, this would be an opportunity for Republicans to level some of the playing field. They're always playing catch up. After Mitt Romney got defeated by Barack Obama, it was, oh my God, Barack Obama's permanent data operation was just so superior. And, we got clobbered and Mitt Romney had Orca and it crashed, which I remember. I was there. It was pathetic. And we got to catch up. So, I'm the new RNC chair and I'm going to spend $1 billion now that Donald Trump got us an opportunity because Trump was a turnout machine. They didn't do anything in 2016. Reince Priebus is a nice guy, but he ran the RNC into the ground. They did nothing between 2012 and 2016 to close that gap. Everything positive that developed was driven by Donald Trump solely. One man. His turnout, bringing those millions of new voters into the electorate, having them come from the hills of Western North Carolina, the Appalachia part of Pennsylvania just coming out of nowhere. Who are these people? Where have they been? That was all for just one man. Rona gets the helm. blows $1 billion on data center, which is what it's called, their permanent data operation that has extreme latency issues. I'm sorry, it does. And they spent all that money trying to catch up to what Barack Obama had done nearly a decade ago, a decade before. Not ago, a decade before. And 2018 comes around and Republicans can't seem to understand how Democrats get their midterm and more of their presidential voters to the polls than they did. If Donald Trump did not go and help a candidate like Ron DeSantis in Florida, they would have lost. He went around, he made it close in Montana for Tester, even though he didn't go at him hard. He made Manchin have to work for re-election, even though he didn't have the time to focus on those two. Those should have been among the easier ones to beat. As it turns out, John Tester's a tough guy to beat, even in Montana. But he did deliver Indiana, took it away from Connolly, and Braun was a great candidate to do that. He did save Florida from electing an active meth head who was under FBI investigation for actual crimes, who's also on the down low, sneaking out of his family home to sleep with men in meth-induced stupors in the middle of the night. I mean, you cannot make this up. By 2020, they know they're in deep trouble. COVID happens. Coincidence? Please. They have to undo the entire electoral system and throw it into chaos. Because with chaos comes opportunity to exploit. Republicans don't know what the hell is going on. They're raising all this money. We're going to fight this in court. We're going to fight that in court. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. They lose every step of the way. Come 2022, they think that the national scene is going to carry them over. Everyone did. Although with the sabotage, I was very cautious. Not only sabotage, they just didn't have the ground game together. Democrats have beta versions of technology they didn't even know existed. Right, Laura? I mean, am I making this shit up, Laura? They didn't even know it existed. And now that they know it exists, they don't really understand it.
They really don't.
They did, yeah. And Democrats already get it. And they are putting loads of money behind it. And more importantly, and I really can't put this, I cannot put this any clearer. They're putting it in the hands of people who know what to do with it. Republicans aren't. Republicans are trying, individual people are trying to make themselves the next savior. They're trying to reinvent a wheel, even though they just found out that the wheel was already invented. It's crazy. Crazy. And by the way, if they win in 2020, at this point, it won't be because of any of the effort many of these people did to try to catch up and close that gap. It would be because of what happened in 2016. Because one guy is a turnout machine. One guy inspires people to go and vote like Republicans have not been able to do. And even, by the way, Barack Obama wasn't able to do, even though in 2008, he inspired a whole lot of people, millions and millions and millions of new people. He still couldn't inspire as many as Trump did in 2020. It's insane. It's insane. Lagging in the polls, lagging in the fundraising, being blamed for hundreds of thousands of people being killed by a virus the Chinese unleashed on us. They're real friends of Donald Trump. That's coincidental. Also, come on, purely coincidental, guys. Don't go down the conspiracy theory hole, guys. Come on now. Purely coincidental. They're really not capable of learning from their mistakes. It's really sad. There are some people coming up with some really cool things that I am really impressed with. And, hopefully we'll be able to share that with you soon. We're not there yet. Where am I at? 145. I know I got to wrap it up. But, yeah, there's some good stuff that's going on out there. And, with a little luck, they'll be the ones who get the attention. They'll be the ones who get the support. and they'll be successful in their efforts with a little luck. But as it stands right now, it's the usual nonsense with Republicans. And that's sad. That's really sad. And by the time they catch up, as it stands right now, Democrats will have moved on to other applications of this technology. And they'll be racing to get. I mean, Scott Presler is living in his car. Even associated with an organization that gets plenty of funds, is getting funds for stuff related to this right now. You think I'm kidding? I'm not kidding. Give me 1 second before I go. I am not joking. And, he did it on social. I don't know that I would have said that myself. Here we go. And by the way, he's had issues with his health recently. All right. So, I mean, this is ridiculous. You're not going to find this. Oops, wrong one. You're not going to find this with many Republican, many Democrat operatives that are doing as much as he's doing with the success rate that he's doing it. You're not going to see this. Here we go. Here's what Scott tweeted not long ago. All right. Earlier this morning. I'm not getting sleep. I'm not eating like I should. I miss family events, weddings, and seeing my friends. I'm living out of my car and suitcase. This is my normal. I'm not saying this to get a pat on the back, but to show that I'm giving this my all. I'm begging and pleading for everyone to vote this November. Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Virginia. Let's come together as a family and save the country we love. Yeah, Juanita Broderick responded to him. There are people that help him. I know people that help him in Pennsylvania. They'll stay at their house or something. And I've heard of them, I've heard of others doing the same. But this is that's outrageous. Why does he not have the tech that I'm talking about right now? Why does he not have that in his hands? Why is he killing himself like this when I can clone 1,000 of you, Scott? Right now. Pick up the phone. Give me a buzz. I'll show you how to do it. The RNC hasn't even called him back. And they know about this tech. Wouldn't you think he's probably one of the first people you would make a phone call to? He's not going to ask you for much. He's not doing it to get rich, clearly. Instead, again, reinvent the wheel, even though you're not even making a better wheel. There are people who already invent and redesign the wheels every year, and they do it better than you because they know what they're doing. They're not new to this. You know what the difference is, though, Laura? They don't get to make money off of those wheels later. And that's what this comes down to. See, folks, if you reinvent the wheel or try, even if your wheel is shit, you will still try to make money off of that wheel because it's your wheel later on. In 26 and 28 and 32, you're going to try to turn a profit off of that wheel as you augment the wheel and make it better, right? If you go to people who already know how to make efficient wheels that all you need to do is use so you can focus your efforts on other things, you don't get to profit on that. The Democrats don't care about that crap. They go to the people who have the best wheels and they drive the car as fast and as long as possible. Sleeping in his car. It's terrible. Why? Why? Democratic activists we just spoke to a couple weeks ago, they were put up in hotels. Sure, they ate pizza and fast food forever, but they got the funds they needed to do this. And then eventually many of them wound up just not having to do that very long because they had, like I said, some of this new stuff and they just kind of like replaced themselves. They did the groundwork when they needed to do it. I think that's just I think that's tragic. I do. All right. I'm going to like 5 minutes over what I was supposed to go over today, but I know it is what it is. Don't forget If you like the video, like it, subscribe, share it far and wide. Check out the Public Polling Project. Contribute what you can. Share that far and wide as possible. The bigger the crowdfund base, the better it is for everybody, and the less burden it is for everybody. The national poll is the Rust Belt poll right now. We already did the national poll based on what I thought we would raise at that point. And then the remaining of that national poll, I should probably do a hyphen so people know that is going to be the Rust Belt poll. All right. And then Georgia's up there as well. I'm kind of interested in polling Georgia to see. I really am. So I know everyone's kind of stoked about that one. It got a little bit more attention, or it got more individual requests. That's what it got. All right. What else? Yep. Share far and wide. Of course, the best place to follow us and what we're doing is on Locals. peoplespundit.locals.com. Having great book clubs on that book right there. It really is going to help you understand a lot of what we're talking about. Like New York, we just went over. It shouldn't be any surprise to people in book club why those arrows look the way they do. But check this out, Locals. We had put up the voter analysis right before Pennsylvania's automatic voter registration was implemented to show you how things would change, right? To get kind of a baseline. I've been monitoring it. The changes are so kind of small and minute right now. Probably sometime next month, we're going to put it up. It's October 25th now. Probably sometime next month, we'll put it up. There is a shrinking of the gap between Democrats and Republicans. There is an increase in the voter rolls for both parties, but Republicans are increasing just a hair more. Still, since voter registration has changed, we're only talking about a 3/10 of a percentage point shift toward the right, but every little bit counts, and you keep hammering away. That's not that bad, right? I mean, that's not that bad since automatic voter registration just started. So hopefully next month for the Locals supporters, we'll do another update on the Pennsylvania voter analysis, but I'm going to run some on some other states. I got Jim and all you other commenters on Locals about the New York poll. I heard you loud and clear. I'll run one in New York. I know it's not a battleground state, but it is a state where we have significant populations of some of these demographics that matter. And it'd be interesting to see what it is. All right. We'll track it as it goes. New Jersey is also interesting when it comes to that. So we'll have that up for you. It's Wednesday. We'll have it up for you before the end of the week. All right. Let me run it. Database takes time. The machine learning thing does its thing, and then we'll spit it out and put it up. All right. But I think it is, I hear what you're saying, and I think you're right. I think it's useful. I think it'll be insightful. Again, join it down right there. peoplespundit.locals.com. And then Friday, we'll see you with more on Inside the Numbers. All the best, folks. Deuces. Deuces, deuces. Don't forget the trends for the primary nominations are going up on Big Data Poll.